Greetings fellow Whovians and welcome to Timey Wimey Reviews. Daleks, we just can't get enough of them. Even though in modern era we might roll our eyes when we see them come out every season more or less, we're still fascinated to know what these iconic pepper pots are up to. For me, the Daleks are what got me into Doctor Who in the first place, so today is only fitting that I rank my top 5 Dalek stories. Now, I won't be going into too much details in these stories. I would like to save that for a more in-depth review for another time. And also, I'll only be giving the top 5 for the Dalek stories that have been on TV. No audio adventures on this one. I'll save that again for another time. So with that out of the way, let's start at number 5, Revelation of the Daleks. Now this just edged in with another story I was considering, but I will talk about that later in the honourable mentions. But Revelation of the Daleks just drips with eeriness and black humour, with a really good pacing that really fits the 45-minute episode format, which was part of Colin Baker's first full season as the Sixth Doctor. What I found unique about this story was how it was narratively driven by the supporting characters, not really by the Doctor, Perry, or Daleks or Davros, really. They are in it, but it's mainly the supporting cast of characters that drives the story forward. It's really, really good. Some brilliant double acts in there. This was a well-crafted story here by Eric Saywood, with the build-up in episode 1 and the payoff in episode 2, with great dialogue between the Sixth Doctor and Davros. If you haven't seen Revelation of the Daleks before, it's certainly worth checking out. Number 4 is Remembrance of the Daleks. I've recently reviewed this on my YouTube channel. Please feel free to check that out. But it is an entertaining story with some powerful social commentary in terms of racism. Action-packed as well, with the Seventh Doctor being the master manipulator, Ace kicking Dalek butt with a baseball bat, and Daleks being Daleks, wiping each other out, especially when the special weapons Dalek comes into play. Number 3, Stolen Earth, The Journey's End. If Doctor Who was ever to go back onto the big screen for a full cinematic movie, this is the closest that we got. It was epic for a season 4 finale. We had the full-on Dalek invasion of Earth. We had the Doctor's companions returning, aka the Children of Time, with Captain Jack and Torchwood, the Sarah Jane Adventures gang, Martha Jones and Unit, and of course Rose Tyler. The first half, I'd say, is a bit stronger than the second half, but this was must-watch TV when it was originally broadcast, with the whole nation talking about that regeneration scene and what was going to happen next. Number 2, Dalek. From epic to dynamic, we had the Ninth Doctor and the Lone Dalek. They were both survivors from the Time War, for better or for worse, both changing into something unnatural, which, if they went through with it, would have scarred them for life. This is British drama at its best. Everyone was curious to see how the Daleks would have been portrayed when Doctor Who was coming back in 2005, and this story did not disappoint at all. Before I reveal my number 1, here are a few honourable mentions. Resurrection of the Daleks. Now, this story did get pipped to the post by Revelation of the Daleks, and I felt that story was a bit more polished, but Resurrection still had a lot to offer. This story solidifies the Fifth Doctor's persona as a person who tries to get the job done and do the right thing, but for whatever reason just can't do it. Case in point, where he threatens to kill Davros. He has a wonderful scene there with Terry Malloy as Davros, who absolutely makes an impact for his characterization as Davros. Definitely one of the top ones there, with some really good prosthetic makeup as well. This also is an insightful look at the violence in Doctor Who, because, my word, the body count in Resurrection of the Daleks, with Daleks and humans alike, I don't think I'll ever see that in the modern era of Doctor Who. There were so many, and I'm glad that it ends on a very somber note at the end of Resurrection of the Daleks, with Tegan basically saying it stopped being fun. Planet of the Daleks. Now, I'm going to have to steal what Nicholas Briggs said about this 6-part story, which is the Daleks' greatest hits. And I totally agree with him. This does fit the 10th season, or 10th anniversary season, of Doctor Who, with repeated plot points from the first Dalek story back in 1963. This lends itself well to the action man that is the third Doctor, John Pertwee. Even though this is not an out-and-out classic story, it does have some nice moments. I really like the third Doctor talking to the Thals on how they should tell the story of them and their dangerous mission when they go back to Skaro, and sort of warning how they tell that story, that war is not a thrilling game. This was also one of my favourite Dalek voices from the classic era of Doctor Who, a massive improvement from the previous story, Day of the Daleks. The Daleks and the Daleks' invasion of Earth. Without these two stories, we wouldn't have had Dalek Mania that swept the nation in the 60s, and we still wouldn't be celebrating the Daleks as we do today. These stories do feel like a slow burn and padded out, but this was made at a very different time. TV has definitely evolved in 50 or 60 years when this serial or serials was originally broadcast. But again, it's a really good sort of time capsule to how Doctor Who was made way back in the 60s. And these two stories did lend themselves to the great big screen versions that we saw with Peter Cushing. Again, something that I would love to explore at another time on Timey Wimey Reviews. Which leads to my number one top Dalek story, which is Genesis of the Daleks. It couldn't have been anything else, really, could it? It's been voted countless times as one of the top Doctor Who stories of all time, along with one of the greatest Doctors of all time as well, Tom Baker. Bearing in mind, Tom Baker was this is his third story in the Doctor Who in his first season, and he was just as if he have been around forever. He just nailed it from day one, and when we get to here, he is just the grandfather of Doctor Who. You can see why everyone just, when everyone thinks of Doctor Who, especially the classic era, you think Tom Baker. However, Genesis of the Daleks goes back to its roots. We have the bitter end of the Khalid War against the Thals, and out of the ashes rise the Daleks, created by that evil genius that is Davros. This is a classic story that's entertaining from beginning to end. I must have watched this countless of times, and maybe a little bit of padding, but I don't care. It's still enjoyable. Had some really good cliffhanger scenes with the Daleks and the Davros saying, "Now we can begin." Sarah Jane nearly plummeting to her death. And also that iconic scene with Tom Baker as Doctor with the Dalek creature. Oh God, there's just so many to choose from. But Michael Wisher, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have again be celebrating Davros as it was. Without him, we wouldn't have had Terry Malloy, and we wouldn't have Julian Bleach. His character was so believable as this crazed scientist, hell-bent on just total domination and just wiping out absolutely anything and any other creature. It also has some great supporting characters. Of course, we have Sarah Jane Smith and Harry Sullivan as the Doctor's companions, but I also love Nida and Garman. I love it when Dennis Chinnery says that iconic line, "You are insane, Davros!" Absolutely love it. On top of all that, we have the Daleks as well. They get a really good show-stealing moment, voiced wonderfully by Roy Skelton. And that's my top 5 Dalek stories. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know in the comments below what your top 5 are, what stories I've probably missed out. Again, this is just my personal opinion. You're certainly entitled to yours. Let's have a chinwag about it in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. Next time on Timey Wimey Reviews, I will be reviewing Demons of the Punjab, but also look out for my editorial of Jodie Whittaker's status as the Doctor. And as the good Doctor once said, exterminate!